Working on my own pagan path of witchcraft and druidry has never been a problem for me. I'm quite a solitary creature by nature and enjoy the peace and quiet that being alone affords. As a child, I had my brother and sister to play with and some other kids on the street, but the majority of my time was spent playing by myself and wandering ever further afield in my teenage years, exploring on my own the forests and meadows and the wilder places where I lived. And yet I never felt alone. I always felt like there were others with me, a presence watching from the shadows and the dappled shade of the woods or from distant hills. Having grown up on Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, I searched out for the fair folk, the elves, and other creatures that I knew could cross between the seams of this world and the next. It's in the quiet, in the silence of solitude, where I find that I can connect the best to the natural world around me. It runs at a pace that I can understand, that I can relate to and work with. I hate cities. I had to live in a couple of cities throughout my life, and it was soul-crushing. I grew up on the edge of a village in the beautiful countryside of the Laurentian Mountains in Quebec, and now I live once again on the edge of a village, but this time in Suffolk, UK. Here the pace is one that is set by the seasons, where there's still the buzz of humanity and the sound of tractors speeding down the village street, or the cries of kids on the playground at lunchtime. But there is also the cry of the hawk circling overhead, the bark of the fox, and the shout of the muntjac deer just on the other side of the hedge in my own back garden. Pheasants stroll around, owning the place, and so many other birds visit. Evenings are when the badgers and the bats come out, and the owls hoot hidden in the trees. Being surrounded by much more than humanity allows me to feel more at ease and reminds me that there is more to this world than what we humans come up with on a day-to-day basis. It's important for me to hear the bird's song, to hear the wind, the snap and crackle of the gorse buds opening in the heat of the sun, to get away from the rush of humanity, which is so pervasive. I understand that we are part of nature, but why do we have to take up so much space and sound? Out here I can hear the Lord and the Lady, the ancestors, the fair folk. Sure, they are there too in the cities, but I personally find it much harder to hear. I don't like noise. My life as a solitary witch is not lonely. I still meet up with friends to celebrate the full moons or Sabbats, but the majority of my work and practice lies in my solitary pursuits. I work from home, so I have the immense pleasure of quiet and solitude throughout the day. I feel that we're trying to be so connected to everything these days, through social media and extensive social networks, that we have forgotten how to be on our own, that we've forgotten how important it is to listen to our own thoughts and to befriend our own self. Then we can truly know ourselves and find our place in the world. Opening up to the goddess and the god in ritual is always more powerful for me on my own. I think that I may live quite happily as a monk somewhere sometimes, spending my days in the solitary pursuit of opening myself to deity. But as a witch, I know that I have to work and live in the world, and so I do not shirk my duties in that regard. I volunteer for my community in the ways that I can, such as being a footpaths warden for my village, as well as a litter picker. I teach what I know to those who are interested, and I always try to give back, honoring the times and tides of nature around me. Being a solitary witch is not a lonely path. When you're surrounded by nature, how can you be lonely? We only have to befriend the bird and the bee, the tree and the bush, the flower and the earth. We have to learn how to communicate with the other than human. Then we realize that we are never truly alone. We find perfect freedom to live and work in the world as we wish, and to share that with others, as and when we choose, not out of necessity. For the sensitive folks out there like me, this is the ideal. On the solitary path, learn all that you can from books and people you meet. Never, ever stop learning, no matter what path you choose to take. Listen for the voice of the goddess and the god. Listen to the ancestors and the fair folk, and know that you are never truly alone.